Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to a possibly completely pointless challenge run, but one that I wanted to do for a bit of a while now. So I've been teasing for ages at this point that I really want to go do all of Tactics Ogre Reborn, essentially with just archers. Now, the thing is, that by itself isn't really too much of a challenge run. As much as people like to hate on the unit, it's got a lot of fun tools at its disposal, and frankly has plenty of tools to solve most of the game's problems. Now, that said, somebody had left an interesting comment the other day in which they were saying, "Hey, you know what? That's all well and good, but hey, I still need to somehow make them look bad. So can you also do it without breach and without fear and without using daggers at any point?" And I was thinking, you know what? That might be an interesting way to handle this whole thing. So basically, melee is almost completely off the table unless we consider shield bashes. All melee finishers are completely out the window. No fear or breach, which is kind of somewhat implied anyway. They kind of sort of had a sort of access to breach from the get-go, just using Dynast King's Maids, which is fine. That saves us a little bit of money, I suppose, even though upgrading them longbows is already super cheap. And additionally, we'll be throwing... Well, actually, one more little note, that technically we didn't have access to fear outside of gloom orbs, which frankly just saves time in terms of grinding those up. And additionally, we have one more little fun wrinkle for the hell of it. We'll also be doing codas 1 through 4, and also remote playing this thing off of a PlayStation Vita via PS4 so that I can do this whole platinum trophy thing for the PS4 version. Yes, I keep looking for some reason to use this janky-ass setup, and this will be the excuse. We'll just go ahead and platinum it while we're at it. Honestly, doing a near 100% or just like full completion run of this whole thing typically requires doing that trophy anyway. Honestly, I don't care about trophies in most situations, but it does kind of very slightly bother me in the most inconsequential manner possible that it is sitting there as the only version I haven't completely completed. Anyway, that said, let's go ahead and get started. Also, you might be wondering about the background music. Technically speaking, I can play the sound effects through the Vita, but it has that little bzzz kind of situation going on, and frankly, we've all heard the soundtrack a million times. So I figured I'd make these like half an hour, 45 minutes, something like that long, and we'll just go ahead and kind of continue on like this. Um, just figure, yeah, I don't want that buzzing sound in the background, and yeah, I don't want more chords coming out of this thing than is already necessary. Now, as always, we'll just go ahead and role play these answers. Technically, all we need is dexterity, but I don't remember which one does what. So, let's see. Reckless plan has ended in disaster. While that is clearly dishonorable. Also, I never realized that lady's face is in such pain before. Also, this lady really loves her lion that she's going to go feed it her fingers. Bit unfortunate. Let's see. All men hold darkness in their hearts. What lurks in yours? I'd be pretty upset if something happened to them. Let's go ahead and continue on here. But yeah, as far as the music goes, again, we'll just kind of turn on some manner of soundtrack in the background and just let that sucker play. Also, as always, apparently with one of these challenge runs, in a bit of passion, you accidentally whoopsie your friend's girlfriend. What did you do? Pretend that didn't happen. What are you doing? How do you do that on accident? The floor is not that slippery. A sage will grant you... Actually, it makes perfect sense. Archers, they got some pretty damn sexy hats. Anyway, let's see. What would you learn? How to get people to understand that this unit is good. Alright, let's go ahead and continue on here. So, whose blessings do you seek? I feel like we need to go air for this one because they are a very... Actually, no. Folks, ever since I mentioned it a little while ago, now there's been this whole thing like, oh man, Earth awful. Fine, we'll go for Earth. we we gotta shift that a little bit. All the elements are good. Earth just has a little bit of a minor inconvenience early on. Anyway, let's go ahead and skip this thing and get going. But yeah, soundtrack for today is going to be Final Fantasy X, as you do. It's been on my mind recently because this Vita was a gift from my wife to be hopefully the one Vita that I don't have to sell for financial reasons. And yeah, as a result, it came with Final Fantasy X, and I've been replaying that recently, and it's a ton of fun. Alright, so let's go ahead and... Where's my L3 again? There we go. That one's L3. Yeah, for those that have never played on the Vita before, thankfully, Reborn is one of those ones that understands how to properly set up the controls. Namely, you got these buttons for your different R functions, which is actually somewhat convenient for a game like this. Also, if the music ever goes very suddenly loud, we'll deal with that at the time. Also, I believe the kind of units at the start might potentially have slightly higher dexterity if they're ladies. So we'll just go for the starting lady squad here. For those that somehow don't know this already, yeah, you just tell Hamilton no at every opportunity, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, this dude needs a girlfriend. This is pathetic." Clearly send him with all the lady soldiers. But anyways, let's go ahead and save. As far as why this is partially completed, this is the one that I was actually going and doing that whole AI only kind of situation on. And surprisingly, if I can find them here, yeah, rune fencers are already at the tail end of the game, like just entirely on AI. They're that broken of a class. Honestly, like that's kind of been my go-to advice ever since seeing that. Like, hey, buddy, if you're having any trouble with difficulty in this game, just set some rune fencers to AI, and they'll basically guide you through to the finish. Because yeah, they just kind of carry this thing with all of their free finisher spam and stuff. It is pretty darn fun. Also, if there's any delays in hitting these start X prompts, the Vita that I went with did end up being a 1000 model, which has that slightly smaller start button, which is a little weird. I did make some modifications to it to make it a little bit easier to reach, but it is what it is. This is basically the only part of the game where that'll be a noticeable thing. But yeah, at the very start, we don't even have a bow yet, so we can't do jack to actually assist here, but we can potentially turn on some of those HP bars. If I can remember which control it is here, it should be, yeah, there we go, it's those ones, and we're just going to go ahead and collect our items and call it good. Alright. Huh? Sir, why are you not going? What on earth just happened? There we go. I don't... Okay, apparently I was in the look menu. I didn't even realize that. Just kind of one of those things that can happen when you're not playing with sound. Also, I hope that annoying stutter doesn't come back. This was also plagued by one weirdly specific issue in terms of the Steam Deck, of all things, where Steam has had this weird issue where certain games cause it to stutter a little bit when you, let's say, launch them and happen to put the thing to sleep. Now, I've reset it multiple times. It still has that stutter. Most of the time it fixes it. Sometimes it just decides to be a little annoying about it. I'm only hearing it very occasionally right now, and hopefully you don't hear it in the video at all. Hopefully it's just Chrome doing a Chrome, but either way. Bit of an annoying issue, but it is what it is. Now, I feel like I mention this every challenge run, but just to go and bring this up, one little kind of design note that I appreciate here that is almost immediately kind of countered by its own design here is the whole elemental system, as far as certain units being really, you know, intentionally super effective versus other units. So what we've got over here, he actually won't be able to do much from there. Let's go ahead and have him move over this direction so that hopefully he can hop over to that one tile in the middle of the lake to go get some items. But yeah, you got Gildas that's super effective versus that Amazon over there. You got Murden that's super effective versus that soldier over there, and it's supposed to be the the usual hey, go after the units you're strong against thing. I kind of wish that when it came to Hamilton, that they had maybe made him a water element or something, because he immediately goes up and then just decks the unit way harder than the one that had a counter against him. Which yeah, is because of his sword and stuff, but you don't necessarily know that. But yeah, it is what it is. I kind of wish that maybe he had like a dull Lombardia for the starting intro or something like that. Because there's a lot of little moments that happen very early on that have a tendency to cause a lot of misunderstandings, and that's one of them. Because, like, seeing him go and deck these units like nobody's business, it's great when you get to see the pincers going and finish something off, but it's not so good when you see the Lombardi absolutely tear somebody in half, and so their immediate thought is, oh, I just need to get the super overpowered unit. Like, no, counters are the name of the game here. You will never be in that position. Like, until you're maybe hundreds of hours in the post-game. Like, that's not you. You don't understand. That's not how this game works. But, oh well, it is what it is. I guess, technically speaking, the one time that you can almost kind of sort of achieve that effect is if you happen to be completely oblivious to the crafting system whatsoever, and maybe find the temple weapons. Also, I'm just going to go ahead and skip this particular one. There we go. Or we'll just... Apparently they've got 3 different versions of the same song right back to back. Interesting. I love the FF10 soundtrack, but that particular one is just very jarring. Like that and the Jekt Boss theme are just right in there as far as being a bit out of place. Now, there's almost no chance that I'm gonna. Yeah, didn't get anything cooler. Oh well, oh well. Yeah, that's actually another potential opportunity that they could have had to really spice things up for the Reborn version, which there never would have been time to do. But do Night of Lotus drops and stuff like that, you know? Technically speaking, they did do part of that with the kind of like the new Palace of the Dead drops and stuff like that. In general, most of the side areas have more interesting drops. But specifically for those that never played Night of Lotus, let me give you an example. So, Tactics over Night of Lotus starts off similarly. You have your questions, you have your kind of intro fight and stuff like that, and then immediately, as you carry on, you have like 5 tiles right in the intro of various different categories that can give you items that you can't access for several different chapters. It's very, very good in terms of pacing. Specifically for repeat playthroughs, like you are always going to get your dragon shield if you go to Scabellum and put a ninja, which you're more than likely able to start with, over in the top right of the map. And it's just this one random conspicuous open square near some boxes. So either way, that tends to be really darn solid. So you're always going to get that shield, but you can potentially get some good items going into those other tiles if you happen to have started off with the emblem that improves your loot chances. And so, for example, in the most recent playthrough, I just figured, you know what, I'm going to remake my team from Horizon's Gate and just sort of see how that transfers over here. What if in reality Alphonse was the real Dabba-dee-Dabba-die the whole time? And I mean, he's got the blue hair. It's just a little bit more to go. He gets the beard. He's already 2/3 of the way there, if you think about it. Anyway, so I figured I'd go and do that, and started him off, with all the answers, answering monetarily and stuff like that. To my mind, Night of Lotus still has the best questions of any of the starting questions in these games. They're by far the most impactful. By far, they give you the most different start at the very beginning. I mean, arguably OB64, and honestly, that's kind of the thing. When it comes to like the Matsuno side of the Ogre series and the other side of the series, it's like every time there was a Matsuno one, the story was generally way better, but like when the other team got involved, the gameplay was usually a lot more logical. It's like, man, can you just marry those ideas, please? And I guess then we'd probably basically get like half the Rad Codex games. So there's that too. Anyway, so with that said, let's go ahead and continue on. So, like in that particular instance, I was remaking that team, and for those that didn't watch the Horizons Gate videos, he wound up with a trident that spins stuff around, and lo and behold, the first drop tile that I run into happens to end up rolling a trident. I was like, man, this thing was just absolutely blessed from the start, I gotta say. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, so yeah, that's all well and nifty. Also, these songs will have basically nothing to do with what's going on in the background at any given time, as right now we have ominous background music that you more than likely can probably barely hear. So there's that too. As is always the case when I try to play something in the background, oftentimes the volume I'm hearing and the volume that the bars are showing is just completely at odds with whatever happens to be going on in the background. Anyway, at this point, I have no bow to fire, so we're going to go back here. Again, the only thing that was technically banned, as far as equipment, was daggers. So while we can't use, for example, the Damask +1, we already have a better thing in the form of the bowgun +1, so really all we're missing is the finishers, because, yeah, Heart Crusher is absolutely cracked, but also at the same time, we're going to be just fine. In fact, actually, I really, one of the things that sort of inspired pushing this a little bit ahead here, was the fact that the most recent speedrun made very extensive use of ranged finishers as part of their strategy. They ended up going and beating my speedrun record by like 4 hours. I was like, you know what? I am so happy to see that. Because as far as ranged finishers, as far as just ranged weapons in general, they do not get the love they deserve. They don't get the respect they deserve. Because they're a tricky weapon. They are, in many ways, like, if you want to see a tricky weapon done badly, look at third gen Armored Core and the Parry Blade. Okay, it's a sort of weapon that is so oddly specific that even a challenge run of it just feels stupid. Wherein it's a weapon with like a 3 second delay to go put out. It's got less power than let's say like bazookas or grenade launchers, which can do this from a mile away. A really long wind up time, and their entire gimmick is just that they pull your arm back and then your character lifts their shield if for some reason they have one, which makes them more likely to block things. At which point, hopefully, you get attacked with the one weapon type that this counters, and hopefully they don't have a recovery time that completely bypasses this anyway, because sometimes the AI will be using the fast cutting blade and just kind of completely bypass your shield anyway. To the point that they can potentially get knocked backwards, and then you hopefully go forward and punch them with the thing. If you're using the default variant, the higher power variants are so short that they can't even reach most of the time, even if you do successfully parry someone. So, like, that is a gimmick weapon or a gimmick build done poorly, where like it just straight up doesn't work most of the time. In the case of the ranged weapons, they have a very, very extreme advantage under very specific circumstances, and it's up to you to create those circumstances. All right, let's go ahead and put the only name I can think of for something like this. So this is going to be Kebaberizer. There was another. There was another name that Vale had thrown out a little bit of a while ago. The name of what's it? I think like a Hawaiian deity or something. That could be the god of ranged weapons, but I forget the name of that, and it's been multiple years, and I'm not going to bother looking up that comment now. So, anyways, we'll just go ahead and get our starting soldiers, and go ahead and probably curb stomp Chapter 1, hopefully before the end of this video. Seeing as archers remain pretty cracked for a decently long time / practically forever under the right circumstances. In fact, the only thing really holding back as the whole situation with post-game is that if we want to complete Code of 4, we're probably going to want multiple maxed brimstone bows, but that's like a maybe. We may not even need that. Anyways, we'll go ahead and get 14 of these right from the get-go, just to have them for now. We'll go ahead and go full offense on these, just pick up 10 of them, because we're going to need them as supplies later. We should have a few of these. Let's go ahead and pick up some of these. Actually, we need one more. There we go. And what else was I looking for? Class marks. Right, I guess we need some of them, don't we? Alright, and then we'll go ahead and pick up like 21 class marks, and we're good to go. So we can't cheese recruitment. That's already not part of this whole equation, seeing as archers do not get recruit. Which is fine by me, I suppose. We don't need no talking, we got arrows. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this schedule change. Oh, Mr. Vice is just too big of a deal to go and change his class. Okay, fine. Which honestly should have figured. I've tried that a million times before, and it never once has actually worked, but hey, it is what it is. Alright. Go ahead and swap you out over here. Our starting elements should be fine. We'll double check that in a little bit of a moment. And also we can use Canopus because he is obviously going to force his way onto the team and happens to have archers anyway. So we'll do that. Also, we get starting Water Archer, which is pretty snazzy. This would absolutely break the game in half in a million different ways in the PSP version right now. But for now, it's just going to be kind of neat that we get to plink stuff from a distance. Alright, let's go ahead and pick up some bows. We will probably want at least one crossbow. Let's go ahead and sell some of these weapons, because we can't use them anyway. Sell these, because I also need to invest in yet another short bow for Vice, as well as taking all of the equipment off of What's-Her-Face, Casual. So, we will go ahead and do that next. So let's see. First of all, you get bow, because it's the only bow that you can use right now. We are absolutely living in the range damage formula. There we go, get you a short bow. And get you a short bow, and you should already have one, but we can't use this dagger. I was kind of tossing up in the air as to whether or not to allow it for parrying purposes. I'm gonna say if we really, really need a parrying dagger or something like that, basically we just can't swing the thing, but if it's like there for something cool later, sure, why not? I'm going to keep a few stickers on hand. Realistically speaking, they were... Like, I think part of the funny part about this whole thing is that particular challenge was thrown out for the express purpose of, like, oh man, like, the melee weapons are the only thing that's good there. No, the bows far surpass daggers by the point that that happens, but they're mostly useful for defensive purposes. So for the time being, we'll just go ahead and shelve those. We'll get a few shields and things going. We'll get a few thingamadeals going. I think I might stick with crossbows on denim for a very particular reason for right now. Just kind of to have extra weapons. In fact, actually for you, I'll probably put a crossbow as well, just so that all of these ladies can have their specific bows alongside their fancy hats. Just makes it easier to tell who's who. Alright, one war ring, one war ring, one war ring, one war ring, one more war ring. Love how the battle music kicks in as soon as the battle is not happening anymore. Alright. So we've got that sorted, and then lastly, we're going to need some other stuff later, but for right now, we can just go ahead and swap out for these circlets. It's not too big of a difference, but it does help deal with the whole resistance issue a little bit. And there we go. Plus, also, it's probably easier to see without their helmets. And then the last little change that we want to make here. I just feel like the game is being sarcastic at this point. Here, let's go ahead and throw that, and then we'll go throw one of these. And in a kind of realistic scenario here, we'll probably keep both of those on there at most times, just kind of see what happens. There aren't too many skills that show up on their skill tree, but the kind of skill list does sort of make itself. Like the eventual crossbow users are more or less just going to be living the Eagle Eye life, which frankly they can just pass that on to everybody else. So we'll deal with that as it comes. As far as not using the daggers, that's all well and good, but we can also keep the dagger skill on there for the purpose of a little bit of extra armor. Now, is this ever going to make a difference? Hell no, but it can be there for the hell of it. Why not? It's not exactly a issue to have it up there. There we go. Put some crossbows, put some short bows, put some tremendous. Alright, there we go. It's at the very least a slot filler. And let's see, give you bows. Or not Mighty Impact, sorry, what the hell am I doing? Crossbows, there we go. And then finally you have crossbows, and then you have daggers, and there we go. Let's go ahead and give you a few of our items. We need to sell this at the earliest opportunity, but we'll throw a couple of leaves on there. I think probably healing is going to be one of our biggest issues in the long run, but also by the time we really get rolling, it should not be an issue whatsoever. Alright. Throw you in there, throw you in there. Now, shockingly, we're going to have the archer standing next to the other archer, and then we've got that one archer that goes by the other archer, and then when we have that one archer move next to that other archer, they can probably arch the other archer, and then, yeah. Kind of just how that's going to end up going. What is this? So, we have a few decent starters in our party. The Ice Lady got a little bit screwed over here, but that's perfectly fine. He starts off with a bow, so hopefully we can prevent him from taking any other actions when it comes to going and shooting said thing. So we'll go ahead and just kind of sit right there. As far as finances go, I would expect this to be a pretty easy one. There's really no limitations in terms of practically anything, really. Yeah, he'll be okay for the time being. Especially, like, if we ever need to get more elemental swaps, it'll be way easier than it was in the no experience run to actually get access to all those things, so we'll deal with that as we do. But for now, we just need to all move forward. And just go ahead and sit that away. By the way, if the very slight kind of delay in frame rate is bothering you, well, sorry. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue on. Yeah, I don't exactly know why I chose to do it this way either, but it amuses me, and I like to have some excuse to use my favorite handheld of all time. So, either way, there's that. It's kind of a funny argument, because in terms of the Vita, there were a few cases now when I went and had put out videos of, like, you know, as far as Ultimate Dad devices go, the Vita always has to be on there, and there's always going to be somebody upset by that for whatever reason. Like, oh, you know, it can't be the ultimate thing. It's clearly not as powerful as a Steam Deck. Oh my god, I can't run everything from, like, now since forever. Like, yeah. Also, you can fit it in your pocket. Like, no, that doesn't count. That doesn't do anything. Like, why would that not count? That is a very important thing. Like, a lot of times, whenever I'm going and putting together, let's say, one vision videos or something like that, it ends up being one of those cases where I'm between laundry loads. I've got like 2 minutes to go just kind of do something before I'm needed for something else. Before I know one of the kiddos is going to be running around the corner, and it's like, okay, here you go. Basically, the more responsible equivalent of a smoke break is about to happen. You just do a few quick turns real quick, and then you just kind of carry on. But it tends to be really darn convenient. And in a shocking twist, you can't stick a Steam Deck or a Rogue Ally or any of those things in your pocket. And what's even funnier is that then you get the whole, like, well, you gotta get a Retroid then. And frankly, I trust Retroids less than I do, decade plus old hardware at this point, because I've seen plenty of failures on those. I've heard from folks that have them that have seen plenty of failures on them. They're great when they work right, but as far as the kind of rigors that I put my devices through, like more or less unintentionally, yeah, it has a tendency to wear on them a little bit. So there's that. Also, here, let's see. Just noticed, yeah, we can go ahead and zoom in a little bit. There's actually a reason to use the zoom in function for once when you're going and playing on this small of a resolution. Dang right, we're going down to like 720p over here. Don't act like you're not impressed. Alright, let's go ahead and pop this archer real quick with his no defense. And I'm thinking this is probably going to be pretty smooth sailing because I've tested this. Again, even on that AI situation, they were able to comfortably coast past pretty much everything up until some slight issues around Chapter 2. And even then, that was before actually getting the team up to scratch or trying to do any kind of optimizing or anything along those lines. And that was, again, on AI. So it is what it is. Actually, that leads to another kind of a fun little ramble for no particular reason here. The other day, there was an argument that's come up ever since Reborn released of like, well, the AI is not smarter. Look, it can't do debuffs now. That makes it dumber. And it's like, kind of, but here's also the other thing. Like, it can do more stuff. It's the context of everything. So, like, One Vision regularly gets praised for, making the AI smarter, but it's the same AI that was always there. It just happens to, essentially, it just happens to be put in a position where it happens to pay attention better, more or less. As in, it's been specifically tooled in a bunch of cases to kind of combine things that players already know are good, which is good when you have the time to test. Like basically, it's been like a decade now. When there's the time to test thousands of battles against all kinds of different conditions and have a bunch of feedback from a very dedicated group of testers over the course of, again, like a decade, like, yeah, you'll be able to figure out exactly what needs to be where. And then we got like Reborn's case where they genuinely did improve the smartness of the AI with it, choosing to go take cover in certain situations, moving in formations, trying to surround units more consistently and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you get no credit. You actually did the thing, but you get nothing. It's one of those things. It's kind of sad to see, but like I get it. It's just kind of a bummer because like that somebody was going and planning all kinds of things in terms of like man, people are gonna appreciate that it does all this cool new stuff now, and like we made it specifically so that it doesn't abuse a lot of its features to grief you, and then immediately like no, it's just stupid. We we won't take a look at it. How dare you ask us to actually look at this thing? Anyway. Go ahead and take this guy out, and there we go. Yeah, don't worry, we're just like doing 2/3 of something's health at long range right from the get-go, but that's fine. It's a weak class, you guys. It's so weak. The range formula totally useless. Um, all right. Anyways, but yeah, that's been said since the very beginning. It's like there's always been them folks that did not like this class, and they're usually very loud, which makes this whole process a lot more fun. Anyway, yeah, chapter one. I'm kind of tempted to just like do as long as I have here, and then just like start this up at the end of chapter two. Because frankly, this is a whole lot of the same stuff you've seen a million times before, in which we find a thing, target a thing, and then just like steamroll, and then that's kind of about it. There's not very much in terms of challenge at the start of chapter one. Because let's see. Like, even in terms of Nibeth, he is very doable at this point. Also, we can use a magic thing there, so Not a whole lot in terms of being able to switch somebody to yet another water element there. Additionally, we get Canopus at this point, who gives us a much-needed air element, and that's probably going to be the biggest factor as far as this run is concerned. Getting enough charms to keep people on all kinds of different elements. Like, we don't even have fire or lightning covered at this point, let alone anything else. So as long as we have counters in play, we have good advantages in play, and that's already for, like, operating smoothly. If we end up having to operate without those counters, that's still perfectly doable, it just takes a little bit more time. And part of that is because of the absolute joy that is the Dark Weight finisher. Because yeah, it's honestly a bit more broken than many folks realize. Not many finishers can, functionally speaking, leave units completely dead in the water. Like even like let's say you have stop, right, and it's like, oh, this thing will just completely stop something in its tracks, and technically, sure it does. However, a little bit of a side note on that. In terms of leaving something stuck in its tracks, how long is it going to stay there? Well, probably not very long, right? It's going to end up disappearing pretty darn quick. Pretty much immediately, stop usually lasts like one turn. Pretty much immediately, it'll end up falling out the dang window in terms of its usefulness. So stop is a good emergency move. It's a good little kind of way to delay something, but it also tends to go away extraordinarily quick. Which means that in terms of actual stopping moves, stuff like, something like Petrify tends to do that job pretty darn well. However, Sleep tends to do it a lot more consistently. It tends to be a lot easier to go make happen. Stuff like Paralysis, though, is super easy in terms of making units waste turns, and is something that, again, archers can basically do guaranteed at long range with every dang shot. So especially once we get the Bowgun +1, we have a tool that we're going to use all game and into post-game. It doesn't matter that it necessarily doesn't one-shot every enemy they come across, just that stun by itself is usually enough to buy time to get some of those other things going, but specifically Dark Weight is what I wanted to discuss here, because Dark Weight is, again, more broken than many folks realize, because while these other moves have a tendency to delay somebody for a little bit, prevent them from acting, prevent them from doing this, that, or the other, hobble slows them down in terms of movement, when it comes to Leaden, it not only prevents that unit from dodging at all, which granted doesn't matter too much in this version, but it also prevents them from moving up or down more than one tile. And that means if they are stuck in an inopportune position, like let's say just looking at this map right here, if somebody gets leadened, right? And they happen to be stuck right here, and they are standing right here, and they are leadened, they're toast. They can't do anything. They are now basically useless. Like, if they're fighting you up here, they would basically have to go, and even here, they wouldn't be able to step down. What many don't realize is that, like, it doesn't prevent them from simply not moving, or not climbing up. It prevents them from moving more than one tile, period. So they can't even hop down. So oftentimes, if you can get them in that position, they are just completely out of the fight, and it tends to last longer than most. Plus, you can consistently keep dropping it over and over and over with a very good chance of success. When it comes to Leaden, it's one of these ones that has a tendency to land dang near most of the time. So either way, just kind of food for thought for the moment while we go and do what we're going to do here. I think we can't hear Felicia in this case, so I kind of want to kill off Donalto just so that we have the old version of Felicia, more or less. There is only one kind of specific thing that sort of bugs me about Reborn, and that's Felicia's weird cat voice. And if we can't hear her, well, I mean, that's just an improvement. So we might actually use her for a run. We also didn't use her for the no movement run, but she also, was sacrificed ultimately kind of pointlessly in that one. Where the entire team was basically killed in a weird blood ritual to get the AI to become aggressive again and come across the map. Yeah, I still have that save file laying around somewhere, but there was just no interest in that run, so I figured, screw it. This is, like, if no one cares to watch it, it's kind of boring. It's definitely doable. It just wasn't very interesting, so I just kind of let that one lie. I still got to finish No Experience at some point. That's just kind of sitting in the backlog at the moment. I did get it pretty much set up, by which I mean we're completely ignoring setup, actually, because it turns out that, yeah, there wasn't really very much to set up there. There actually seems to be an almost unique situation when it comes to those food items in Farampa Wildwood. wherein it seems like they actually only drop the first time and then for some reason don't again. Because I can't imagine it's so unspeakably rare that in like 10 plus hours I have not seen a single other one of any three types. So, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, that would make sense because unlimited food items right then and there is beyond broken. But I think it's a unique drop situation. I've asked multiple people to see if they, maybe can use some of their weird code hacky powers to figure out whether that's the case, but nobody's stepped up and done that, so, oh well. Alright, let's see. Yeah, probably just pew pew on you. There we go. Get a few more points going. We'll probably just go ahead and feed a couple of points over to Mr. Canopus. Also, I love this theme. Also, it's very fitting in the rain with its very slight lag right now. Because the the Vita is just like trying to keep up. Like, please, I'm not used to having anything with a resolution. Why are you doing this to me? I'm sorry, little buddy. This is what we're doing. Alright. Anyway, let's go ahead and pick up this crit card on you, because I won't necessarily have time for the other units to do that. Pop this one a little bit. Again, like, archers are as good as they've always been for the first chapter. Like, again, that's one of those funny things, because they are more powerful than they were in earlier versions in the first chapter, unless you're doing the Giga grind and stuff like that. And then from there, like, they have moments where it's like, okay, they sort of get resisted by this thing, and then they utterly dominate this other thing, and ultimately it ends up saving you time, which is why they're used in things like speedruns and whatnot. They ultimately end up saving you time because they end up clearing out certain things a hell of a lot faster than trying to get there close. Like, getting rid of anything that isn't a heavy frontliner with an archer has a tendency to be a lot faster than getting your person over there, because they can just sort of sit in place and keep shooting. So, tends to be pretty darn useful is the thing, especially when you have guaranteed stuns and things like that at your disposal. Anyway, let's see, you're currently in the way. You are now about to not be in the way. Beautiful. There we go. That's nice and gone. Alright. Let's see. You can probably grab one of them type dealies. Probably do this thing where you just kind of shoot an alto in the back so that we can get the weird cat lady. You go this way, probably also do the same. Hey, buddy, bye, buddy. Almost. We'll need one more, because she's not the crit one that I thought she was. So, we got a Vit card. Sure, we'll just pick them up while they're here. We'll definitely want more cards over time. Dexterity is... Well, Dexterity and Strength are definitely going to be the main ones, but for now we're alright. We'll take any cards we can get, honestly. Seeing as they benefit inordinately high from these things, seeing as, as soon as they break thresholds, they crush. And it's, like, that should be... It's a format that's used in so many RPGs. Again, I still don't know why they get hated so dang much. It's, like, this exists. This has existed before. This is not a new concept. It's like, it's basically that one unit that as soon as they hit a certain threshold, they absolutely crush things. I mean... I was called it a Magikarp unit, even though that's not technically right, because they don't even really need to, like, train up for that purpose. They will just sort of get there on their own as long as they target the right things, and or they use the right moves. Like, they're a bit more selective and tricky to use than some others, but it is what it is. Hell, there was a video from Titanium Legman recently, basically going over those arguments from folks that insisted that things like Unicorn Overlord aren't even a strategy game. Like, there's always just going to be those people. I was like, dude, what planet are you living on? Actually, I appreciated one of the comments in that one from somebody that chimed in that I guess was like an army guy or something. They're like, no, you don't understand. This is way more realistic strategy than most, actually. Like, logistics and preparing for stuff ahead of time is proper strategy. That's what war games were all about. Like, okay, definitely. Like, that's again why we had Ogre Battle as the first Ogre game. It was just like, that was sort of the whole deal of, like, you figuring out how to win hearts and minds, as well as figuring out the logistics of fighting things, is going to give you a pretty notable advantage and stuff. Alright, anyway. I'll just keep popping our little pew-pew arrows over there. Can't wait to get our longbows, because we're almost there. We basically do this, we go up north, we come on back, and then we get pretty much our best bow for like the first half of the game. Um, like they really, really upgrade cheaper so much more than everybody else. And even hell, even if that was the only thing that they do that a lot better than the archers in Knight of Lotus did. So, for those that never played Knight of Lotus, the archers in that one were basically the speed specialists, which was weird because they shared that particular distinction with multiple other classes, which is why they generally were kind of looked down upon. Because, like, let's say you had your archer, right? And you didn't even need the archer, or rather sniper, emblem in order to actually use them. It's oftentimes assumed that you did, and it's a little bit funny that no enemy archer in the game carries the sniper emblem outside of, I think, Orson. So they always end up earning the emblem that their class always earns first during the fight that you fight them. But when it comes to specifically to that class, they were in this weird position that they've got bonus damage with bows and I think also crossbows, but they didn't have an animation for it. But then at the same time, they're also in this kind of janky situation where, like, they're not the only speed specialist. They end up unlocking at basically the same time as the ninja, which, due to having kind of better stats in general, tends to do as much damage as they do with bows, like bonus or not. The actual weapon bonuses are fairly minor, whereas every class had a sort of like sliding percentage scale over where their damage was going to land. And it was very difficult to escape that sort of tether because, again, it had this unique kind of damage tethering system. So this meant that archers, let's say, did actually end up working somewhat similarly to Reborn. Like, I know one of those memories that always made me respect the class as a kid was this moment when I didn't really have anyone else to put in the team when doing the Astoria Castle fight, and Ariel ends up getting killed off. I think that was Ariel. It was either Ariel or either her or the generic one that I had. Ends up basically getting one shot by an archer. Because immediately as the fight starts, the guy with the ice bow way in the back ends up sniping her across the damn map. And, like, in those situations, it's like, yeah, I can understand why these are feared. Like, this is a really powerful unit. And that was a kind of unique situation in which their full sort of scaling got to take effect. They have a pretty decent damage modifier on them. They've got really long range. They were getting an elemental bonus in that case. They were standing on icy ground that made them shoot better. They were matching their element to their weapon, and so this dude was just like absolutely dunking somebody that had a complete disadvantage in the form of the mermaid that got shot there, because the mermaids suffer a 50% stat penalty if they're out of water, which is a hilarious troll on the part of the developers because that entire game basically takes place out of water. They're like, here's this one unit, they're threatening for about one fight, and then you actually get access to them. They're like, guess what? The rest of the game is frozen. Joke's on you, asshole! Oh man, I love that so much. It's one of the reasons that we tried and failed the Mermaid run years ago, though I will say I did find a way to do it. It's stupid, but I did find a way to do it, and we'll be revisiting that idea at some point. But yeah, once again, we will be trying to play that thing on a Vita because it amuses me, which means that we won't have accurate sounds, which is fine. Honestly, it's just, this thing is basically like my favorite little Game Boy thing. But anyways, yeah, we are getting relatively close on time, so I think after this, I will maybe do another map or two, but I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and kind of call it at the 45-minute mark. And then I'm just going to skip the boring parts of Chapter 1, and then we'll just, like, pick up end of Chapter 2, doing Nybeth. So I think we'll just leave it at, like, I'll clear out the rest of the nothing fights. We'll basically do the Nybeth dunk, which is hilarious, because you can set them to AI, and just the AI will completely roll Nybeth. Like with archers and everything. Like I did them with no skills and whatever else when I was doing it, and yeah, it's not even a contest, dude. They're one of the easiest ways to completely dunk on the guy, so we'll do that. And then yeah, we can get into Chapter 2 proper. Basically, all we need for that is to get the level cap to 10, which we will do. And we got our new lightning units, which is pretty darn snazzy. Now, there are certain units that can roll different elements when you're going and playing through differently. From what I understand, these guys actually do have a bit of randomness to their setup, so that's all well and good. Anyways, though, so yeah, when we next meet, I will have everybody with their longbows, which should be available at after the northern, kind of the first northern push. And yeah, sort of optimal setup for this point is just going full leather. So leather sleeves, the linen slops, the leather armor, as well as the circlet. Now, this can go either way. This will eventually become the Balder helmet, but the reason that we go circlet is specifically for the elemental resistances, just due to the fact that if they get hit with a finisher that counters them, they have that as an option. Additionally, we have access to peltas at this point because in a weird twist, as a reference to the old Genoese crossbowmen, you actually have access to a couple of heavier shields. Specifically in this case, the pelta, which yeah, that's all well and neat, I suppose. Also, I thought I went to the buy menu, but I did not. So yeah, as soon as we get access to peltas, we can go ahead and use those, and that will be all well and snazzy. But yeah, we'll go ahead and save Nibeth for the time being. I have to say, as much as I love the random battles in like Tynemouth Hill as well as the river, it is very cozy to not have to worry about accidentally triggering a fight over there. So that's all well and nifty. But yeah, so that's going to be that. Y'all have yourselves a good one. I will see you when I see you, and see you in the next one. Bye.